Top 10 great analog equalizers that won't break the bank. Here we go. Hope you're having a great day, folks. If you like the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and likes and comments are always appreciated. 10 great analog EQs that won't cost you an arm and a leg. I will keep this list under $1,000. You know, I tell it how it is, and unlikely our other video, the 10 best cheapest analog compressors, in which you can find extremely cheap units that still perform at a high level. With hardware EQs, it's a bit harder to find cheap options that sound good, or at least that are worth the money compared to plugins, because, well, plugins are really good and they can do things that analog equalizers just cannot do, like linear phase, unlimited bands, or dynamic processing. With that said, good analog equalizers do make a difference, and a big one, because if it's true that plug-in equalizers are good, you also hear a lot of engineers, a lot of people saying they don't like the sound and they are mindful of their use. Well, those people, including me, are used to good sounding analog equalizers. Can you mix with only plugins? Of course you can. Everyone telling you the opposite doesn't know how to mix. Plugins are not the bottleneck today. They are just very different from hardware and they require a different use. This is to say, cheap in this list is not gonna be $100 and 500 series will reign supreme, but I will still give you what I think is the best bang for the buck, and all the units I'm mentioning I either have, had, tried, worked on, or I know the company and I have good enough feedback from trusted colleagues in the industry. Except for the first one, let's make things clear. I've never tried this one, I never had it, I never seen it in person, so I have no idea how it sounds. It's the Claraphonic EQP-KT. I put this one in the list because I was sure you guys would have asked about it. No, I never tried it. I never tried any product from this company, so I really have no idea how they sound. So I cannot say if it's worth buying, it's not worth buying. It's out there in the market. A lot of people are talking about it, and it's a cheap option. This EQ is supposed to be based somehow on the Pultec EQP1. It costs $200, and that's literally all I know about it. One thing I want to remind you guys is this unit is priced pretty low and it's got tubes in it. Now, if you watched my video on tube gear, you know that first of all, tubes don't mean better sound by default. And second, most important thing, tubes inside a unit doesn't mean anything. It's the circuit around the tube, is the power, is everything around a tube circuit that makes a tube circuit sounds good or special. And that is costly, okay? So Claraphonic EQP-KT is our number one. Number two, at $300, Communal Labs 560 equalizer is an inductor equalizer, 3 bands, high pass filter, output level, and bypass. I like inductor equalizer. They're very musical and a classic sound. I've never tried this specific one from Communal Labs, but I had 2 units from Communal Labs, so I know the brand well enough. I had 2 channel strips from Communal Lab. I had them for a while. They were a Neve design kind of clone, and I remember the EQ on those units being really nice, especially the low end. The high end was getting a little harsh when pushed too much, but that also is very different from an inductor equalizer, which is the 560 EQ here. Smooth and musical is definitely a characteristic of inductor EQ's design. So this could be actually a good choice. Is the cheapest inductor EQ that I'm aware of. It's mono. You will need 2 for stereo use. Number 3, Rhodes PQ160B. I've never tried this unit specifically, but I tried the Rhodes compressor, and that was really good. It had a good sound for the price and well built. The PQ160 is priced at about $340, and it has an interesting design with full parametric bands and a high and low shelves. Rhodes get good feedback, usually makes good products. This one is a stereo unit, so it's relatively cheap for a machine that is definitely versatile. Number 4, Chop Shop EQ by Louder Than Lift Off. I have 2 hardware here next to me. You saw this coming. I had these for years. You know I love them. I have a video review on them here on the channel and also on the plugin, because you can find all the details on those videos and actually the way I use them and how they sound. I'm not gonna talk too long about these 2. They are among the best filters out there, especially for the price. They are priced right now, I think, around $390. Chop Shop is basically a tilt EQ with high and low resonant filters. And it has a couple of tricks for the low end, which are pretty unique, so don't get deceived by the simple design. These units are really versatile. I had them on my 2-bus occasionally, but I love them on vocals, on groups, on guitars, and they are dented, so it's easy to stereo match the 2 units. You need 2 if you want to use them in stereo, and 4 recalls. These 2 were a dirty little secret before I let the cat out, but they're great equalizers. Our number 5 goes for about $425, is the 5-fish Audio PQ160B. Again, another 3-band inductor equalizer in 500 series. This one is already going into high-end territory. Each frequency has 2 selectable frequency and a bypass switch. It also has an EQ in and out bypass switch. This is a smooth, broad curves EQ. You can go from small subtle changes or extreme carving or boosting with a plus or minus dB per band. The sub and air frequency are perfect for that final touch, a smiley curve EQ if you want. Being an inductor based equalizer, this one sounds very musical. I tried this one a couple of times on a friend 500 series rack, and I remember being really nice sounding. We already are in high-end territory with number 6, the Tonelux EQP5. This is an amazing equalizer. I worked on it several times. I still do occasionally here in Los Angeles. It's one of the most versatile and best sounding mono equalizer out there. Designed by my friend Paul Wolf, the same Paul Wolf who designed the API 2500 and so many other units, including the fixed audio gear. Right now, this 4-band EQ has definitely a vintage vibe to it and a quite specific design. It trades the common variable Q that you find, for example, in API equalizer for a constant energy curve that, in my personal experience and for my taste, it makes the EQ sound better at extreme settings. In short, the Tonelux is one EQ you can twist as much as you want and it will never sound bad. Priced at $49.99, we are in the high-end territory, no doubt. It is a mono unit, so you will need 2 for stereo use. Priced at about $645, this is a new classic, we can say. Has been used on so many vocals and so many mixes. The Kush Audio Claraphonic made a lot of noise when it came out, and rightfully so. It's a very unique parallel equalizer. Its sounds became popular in modern music, especially, like I said, on vocals. The 500 series module is the same as the rack unit, only you will need 2 for stereo use. I worked on this EQ several times. A bunch of friends of mine here have it, and like I said, it's a very recognizable sound, especially in modern pop music, but not only really. At first, you want to put it on everything. The key with this one is a little goes a long way, and you're actually better off deciding on which element, 1 or 2 in a mix, you want to put that kind of high end, that kind of sound, and reserving for those tracks. But this EQ definitely adds that shine on the high end that we are very familiar with today. Also great on 2-bus if used conservatively. Recalls are a bit of a headache. That's why they made a mastering version. Recalls with EQs are one of the 2 most important factors for me when picking a new equalizer, when buying a new unit, and I will talk about this later. Number 8, Purple Audio Little PQR. It sells for about $625. I had this EQ on demo for actually several weeks and I loved it. It's a nice sweetening equalizer. It's based on the old Lang PQ1 and the Klang Film RZ062. We saw the plugin version of the RZ062 on our top 10 plugin video, if you remember. These 2 EQ, the PEQ1 and the RZ, were sought after tube EQs from the 50s and 60s. Purple Audio was inspired by these 2 EQ, making this solid state version. Like I said, I had it for some time. It is a really nice sweetening equalizer. Top and bottom bands are high quality. We are talking high-end gear, suited for 2-bus EQ vocals. You can see you have 2 bands, each one with 3 selectable frequencies. It's a bit limited, but is also a sweetening EQ. Is not supposed to be a versatile parametric EQ. It's versatile enough to be a great EQ at what it does, and is actually a good EQ for tracking as well if you use it conservatively. Purple Audio gear is top notch. This one sounds really good, and it's purple. Who wouldn't want that? Number 9, many of you will probably be familiar with this one, priced at $699, the Warm Audio EQ PWA. I only heard this one in action a couple of times, so I'm not going to express my opinion on it just because I don't have enough experience with it. But it's undeniable that you see these EQs around a lot. $700 is a good price, meaning you can start building a high enough quality tube circuit at this price range. Even though we said tubes are tricky, tube gear is expensive because everything around the tubes is expensive to make. The tubes themselves are not that expensive, is at what place in the path they are and what's around them. But again, at this price range, I can see it being legit and being a good sounding unit with a high enough quality circuit. And the few times that I heard it in action was actually sounding really good. I can see this unit adding something to an all-in-the-box setup, for example. Is obviously Pultec EQs are best for two-bus, bass, vocals. I personally prefer solid-state Pultec, but we will talk about this in another video. This one is a mono unit, so you will need 2 for stereo use. Number 10, Drummer 1974. Right now it sits on my 2-bus. I wanted to keep this list, like I said, under the 1K mark, under $1,000, and the new stereo parametric EQ from Drummer is right there at the 1K mark. Maybe it will cost even a little less than that. We don't know that yet for sure, because, well, don't hate me, I'm kind of the only one who has it yet, and it's not out. You guys will be able to buy it in summer, but this unit sounds great. I have a full review of it on the channel, all dented pods, stereo operation. I love this EQ because it's basically the perfect design at this price range. It's really hard to beat. See, personally, I think when you're in a budget, or if you're buying your first unit, you should have 2 main EQs. One, a full parametric like this one, stereo full parametric with filters, variable Qs, dented pots for recalls, and a sweetening EQ. So ideally a Pultec style EQ. That's basically the combination you see on every major and not major studios, has been worked for years on so many tracks, and there's a reason because of that, because the 2 types of EQ complement each other very well. The 1974 became right away one of these 2 for me, is my full parametric equalizer. And one of the characteristics of Drummer gear is they are so very musical. You know, I have at this point I think 5 units from Drummer, and they all share this particular musicality. All their gear, it's something that is hard to put your finger on, but you know it when you hear it. This one has great low pass and high pass filter overlapping bands, and the thing they did on the low band, it's great. It makes it so easy to sculpt a focused and powerful low end, but watch the dedicated video, you will hear it in action. It's super versatile, it sounds great, and will be just below 1K. Will be available in summer, don't hate me in the meantime. I want to close this one mentioning another EQ, which is gonna be here in few days, so you will see that later, and if you're watching this video you will wonder why, so I'm gonna mention it here. It's gonna take the place of my Elysia 500 series here in the rack. And like I said, my ideal setup is 1 full stereo parametric EQ and 1 Pultec style EQ. Well, in few days you will see next to its brother the Wes Audio Dion, the Wes Audio Prometheus, the stereo solid state Pultec equalizer they just released. They released this at NAMM actually. State-of-the-art stereo solid state Pultec EQ, all analog, digitally controlled, and with mid-side. Stay tuned for the review, it's gonna be here soon, but I wanted to mention it in this video. All the links to the units we've seen in this video are gonna be in the info box down below. I hope this video was useful, I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like. Follow MixBus TV on Facebook and Instagram. There's a lot of exclusive content in there and news about the upcoming videos, upcoming courses, and all that stuff. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. See you next time.